Todd Richards here, Roots, Hearts,
and Soul.
Stefan and I are launching this podcast based off cookbook Roots, Heart, and Soul by myself, Todd Richards, with a great help from Chef Stefan, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Oh, you stop, you. We have such a beautiful history together.
I mean, it's crazy. Really, what people are going to get from this podcast is telling the story of Afro people, Afro cuisine.
We're going to be telling the story of the Pan-African diaspora.
Roots, heart, soul of the world, as we say. We are launching in a couple of weeks here, some terrific guests. Stay tuned. Follow us on all our social media at Chef Todd Richards in all formats. Chef Stefan, what's yours?
ChefStefan.it, AYITI. This is the correct way to say Haiti.
Well, we're getting education already.
So if you want to find out more, if you want to listen to great stories being told by amazing, amazing culinary talents, we're going to be hearing stories from Africa all the way to the Caribbean, all the way to the Americas. It's going to be something special.
Giving everyone the good rhythm, the good vibes.
Yeah, baby.
We look forward to seeing everyone. Talk soon.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
There are a lot of things to love about Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. My friend, Carlos Mendez Blas, makes Palomo Mezcal by cooking his agaves underground, milling those cooked agaves with a horse-pulled stone wheel, fermenting that in open-air wooden barrels, and distilling it in wood-fired copper pot stills, the same way his great-great-grandparents made it more than a century ago. You'll also love it because it tastes like it was made more than a century ago. It tastes like history. So reach back in time and grab a bottle of Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. Great in cocktails, great on its own. Hey, road trippers! Before we start this week's episode, in case you're one of those people who follows the trials and tribulations of Comercam, the certifying body, well, not the certifying body, which is sort of the issue, but a certifying body for Mezcal. If you've been following Comercam's trials and tribulations over the last several years, we broke a piece of news on Thursday, June 27th, about another fine that they had received as a consequence of the actions of the former administration of Comercam. So it's a fine of over 4 million pesos, comes out to something like $225,000 US. And if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, go check it out on our Instagram page. It was, as I say, on Thursday, June 27th, so it's easier for you to find. You know, I'll just add a note here. I don't like the monopolistic practices of the former administration of Comercam, that was going under the name CRM at the time. Because it was harmful to these small mezcaleros in particular. But as I'm looking at this 4 million peso fine coming in now for this new administration that I don't see behaving in the same way, I feel like that fine is going to actually further impede Comercam from doing what they should be doing, which is supporting the small producers. So, I mean, I know I don't have a say in it. I have nothing to do with the Mexican government or Mexico in general, but I got to say it kind of breaks my heart to see these people who are trying to rectify the damages of the past basically paying the penalty for things that they didn't do. Anyway, with that, I'll let you take it away, Roy, if you can start up the music. Thanks. I'm Lou Bank.
I'm Andrew Moldenhauer.
Agave spirits and rural Mexico. Andrew.
Yes, sir.
I brought you on. I didn't bring you on. It sounds like I carried you on my shoulders.
I am a bit heavy for that.
Well, you know what? Anybody's a bit heavy for that with my shoulders these days. I brought you on because there's this quote. I'm going to read you a quote.
Go for it.
Okay. According to the Beverage Testing Institute of Chicago in Illinois, mezcal is the purest distillate or alcohol that exists on the planet and the noblest within the human body. So that quote is attributed, as I said, as I quoted, to the Beverage Testing Institute. Andrew, where do you work?
For the last 2 years, I've worked at the Beverage Testing Institute. That quote predates me, but nonetheless, it is attributed to us.
Well, hang on. So the quote is real if it predates you. It wouldn't predate, right?
Well, certainly not from me. And as we've discussed a little bit, it's certainly a misquote or a non-existent quote, to be more accurate.
Okay, so tell me the story. Is there a story behind this?
To my knowledge of what I've heard, it's been floating around for approximately 5 years. Every once in a while, this will happen with other spirits, other wines. Beverage Testing Institute sounds pretty official. We've been around for 43 years overall as an organization. And every once in a while, these things will pop up with just like, hey, we want to come up with something to say. Who's an easy place to attribute it to? Sometimes it'll be Beverage Tasting Institute as well, which again, kind of, well, we own the website to try to cut down on some of this. This is an easy way to be like, well, here's this non-existent organization, Beverage Tasting, that said this. So it's a little bit of a kind of easy way to sound official without actually having an official quote.
Oh, that's fascinating to me. I assumed that this was pulled from something you guys actually said and was just futzed around with.
When you dig more into it, when it talks about the polysaccharides and the monosaccharides, we're not chemists. Like, it's not a chemical institution of tasting. It's a sensory lab, not a actual chemical lab.
Okay, you know what? To that point, I'm going to read the rest of this quote, right? So I'm going to start at the beginning for context. According to the Beverage Testing Institute of Chicago in Illinois, mezcal is the purest distillate or alcohol that exists on the planet and the noblest within the human body. This characteristic comes from its chemical composition, while other beverages are converted into monosaccharide sugars that our liver must process and eliminate, producing that unpleasant effect known as hangover. Mezcal is transformed into a polysaccharide sugar, which, as soon as it comes in contact with the mouth, begins to disintegrate, making its transformation in the body much faster, with fewer side effects. However, we must understand that mezcal, besides being magical, is jealous. That's the full quote that I pulled off of the website. I'm throwing you guys under the bus. Because it's still up there. The website for Mezcal Complice. Complice? I guess it would be Complice. We'll put the link to it on the web page. Sorry, guys, did you misquote or did you make it up? I'm going to say made it up.
It's pretty much made up. It pops up from time to time. We've had it pulled off of several other websites, and like many things on the internet, it just continues to pop up here and there.
Well, so I'll tell you, I went down a little rabbit hole with this, and I'm not going to take you through the whole rabbit hole, right? But as you say, you guys aren't chemists, you aren't scientists, right?
I did pretty good in organic chemistry in college and did well in biology, but I haven't used it since.
Okay, so somebody who is pretty good at science is Dr. Ryan Aycock, who happens to be, wait, what do they call him? He is the chief medical officer of Agave Road Trip.
Oh.
So, right. So, I'm just going to, sorry, Ryan, that I didn't contact you for this, but I didn't have the $50. So I'm pulling a quote from one of our previous episodes. It's, for those who want to go listen to the whole thing, it's season 2, episode 108, Tequila and the Myth of the Low Glycemic Index. Who in their right freaking mind who works in the industry of alcohol would ever go out on a limb and say any of this stuff is healthy? That's crazy.
Yep. That's what got me interested in the myths regarding alcohol, or the tall tales regarding cocktails. That's what kicked off the whole Cocktail MD thing, was listening to this speech a few years ago and thinking, that is absurd. Why would anyone start touting health benefits to their alcohol product?
So that's, that's pretty on point. from an emergency room doctor, right? But then I also I went looking for something that didn't have the word freaking in it. And I headed over to, let's see, where did I put it here? Okay, so I found this study from 2022, so fairly recent study, right? The title of the study is Agave Syrup Chemical Analysis and Nutritional Profile Applications in the Food Industry and Health Impacts. And this was published in the Environmental Residential Public Health Journal. Lucrative industrial agave production raises concerns about ethical considerations that hinder sustainability, especially the environment. We expect more research to be conducted into agave syrup intake on human metabolism to justify its health claims as a natural alternative to other sugars. Research to improve the industrial process for obtaining agave syrup from agave juice via enzymatic or acid hydrolysis with the goal of preserving beneficial components, for example, polyphenols, saponins, and dietary fiber, while lowering the content of potentially harmful components, for example, fructose, is crucial. Which I think goes back to exactly what Ryan said. Why would anybody who's in this industry in their freaking right mind ever say?
It still sounds like alcohol to me, which at the core of it is not healthy for the human body.
Right, but let's get to the idea of it being the purest distillate even. Because it strikes me that probably the purest distillate is vodka.
Well, and beating this question around a little bit, there's a couple of different ways we could phrase what does it mean to be purest. Certainly,
it won't have sex until it's married.
Yes, puritanical spirits. But going along those lines, like, yeah, first thought is vodka, something that's column distilled. It's been run through a column still, thousands of plates.
Or grain neutral? Is that a...
Grain neutral would be similar to vodka, but vodka can be from anything. It could be from grapes. It could be from sugar. It's just, you distill the hell out of it until there's nothing left. Yeah. Flavorless, odorless, tasteless, and essentially just pure alcohol. So pure alcohol would, in theory, be the purest. I guess if you wanted to defend Mezcal as one of the purest spirits in the world, it would be, we're using clay pot stills, we're using natural ingredients, and we're as close to the pure ingredient as possible because we haven't distilled the hell out of it.
Oh, the purest in terms of closest to the thing that made it.
Yeah, so again, on the other side of the spectrum, I would think if you wanted to call Mezcal pure, you'd say it's closest to the agave because you haven't run it through 3 copper pot stills, then a column still, and then filtered it through charcoal 1,000 times.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so in that case, it would actually be, if you could find a 25% ABV, like a single distillation on the mezcal.
Yeah, in theory,
that would be closest to the core ingredient.
Closest to the core ingredient, or
well,
similar.
Hang on a second. Then let's talk about beer and wine, which aren't even distilled. Those are closer, aren't they?
Exactly. So I was thinking along the lines of cognac. If you were to take a 1 grape single farm, turn it into wine and run it through a still once and have something that's about 12-15% alcohol, that would be your purest distillate to the core flavor. But you also have a lot of off flavors. You have a lot of sulfur. You have a lot of negative components that don't particularly taste very good.
Oh, okay.
So what is pure?
Okay, so in essence, this is just, I think we can boil it down, and this isn't the conclusion yet because I'm about to throw you under the bus. So so we could boil it down to this quote is just nonsense.
Yeah,
Okay.
Completely unattributed to us. Certainly can't contribute anything to a false quote.
Okay, so now let's talk about our friends at Forbes. Now, I've got very good friends. I've got very good friends who work at Forbes, and they just published 2 articles related to what'd you just release? The world's best mezcals.
So we did our reviews in May, tasted through mezcals, agave spirits, tequila, some from the United States as well. So agave spirits is the overall term, just because we can't call all of it mezcal when it's not from Mexico. Obviously can't call all of it tequila, but saw about 150 different spirits this May, and then sent all of our results over to Forbes for the articles.
And then Forbes, and I'm quoting here, Forbes wrote, first, tequila must be produced exclusively from blue agave. That's accurate.
That is accurate.
Right. And then in parentheses, it refers to blue agave as agave tequilensis.
Which I've never seen before.
I've never seen. It feels to me like that. I've felt it before, right? Where the bottle of tequila is trying to kinetically communicate with me. I think that's what that means.
I thought it was the telekinesis between plants within the plot. So
maybe it's that.
Maybe it's plants communicating.
That's a different
with
kind of biodiversity.
It would certainly be a higher level of agave than I'm currently familiar with.
Okay, so that's that was like the third or fourth line. I just stopped reading at that point. Sorry and again, very good friends at Forbes. I probably know the person who edited that piece.
Joe's a great guy, very intelligent historian. I thought he was better with his Latin than that.
Right. Well, hey, you know what? He's just the writer. The real problem is the editor, and the real problem is the copy editor.
Somebody should have caught it along the way.
Yeah, that's some intern. So that's but in the second of the articles, so that was in, for some reason, the best mezcals. For the world's top tequilas, they wrote, traditionally, tequila was a celebration of the unaged essence of agave. Its flavor profile was vegetative and herbal, layered with the sweetness of cooked agave piñas and fermentation-induced fruity notes.
Within spec, I mean, we can argue highlands, lowlands, what is the core flavor of agave?
I'm not even going to go there, Andrew. I'm not even going to go. And again, I know you didn't write this, but it feels to me like you're at least a sympathizer to this.
Depends on where you're going with this, but
Sure, no, that's fair.
I certainly write tasting notes all the time, so it's sympathetic to somebody who's trying to describe what's going on the palate.
I've had a number of wonderful conversations with Chuck Cowdery, and Chuck gave me a quick education on aging of spirits in wood. And one of the things that he pointed out was, well, look, they've always been aged in wood, just not intentionally, right? Because what else would you store the spirits in?
Well, that's Chuck and I have some other disagreements and had a recent whiskey agreement on a public forum as of last week. So,
did you say an agreement or a
disagreement?
Oh, disagreement.
So
I don't know that I'm allowed to have you in my house.
So respect the hell out of Chuck. Love him as an individual, but amphora existed long before oak barrels. Oak barrels start with the Celtic nations basically coming out of the Roman era and only reached dominance during the Middle Ages. So
hang on, I'm digging this.
So
okay.
we've stored spirits and wine in amphora, clay, limestone, and a hell of a lot of other vessels long before we started messing around with barrels.
I dig that, but what's amphora? What the hell is amphora?
So amphora are traditional clay jars.
Oh, okay. So I've got some of those.
So specific shape starts with the Greeks, but it was the means of transportation around the ancient Greek and Roman world for thousands of years.
Transporting in clay.
Transporting in clay.
Okay, so do you think they were transporting in clay on the backs of donkeys in rural Mexico in the 1800s?
I mean, they're still using clay now for various things. I wouldn't think it was the easiest to transport, but then again, oak barrels aren't exactly light.
Not light, but donkeys. They're tough animals. And I've got pictures of donkeys carrying barrels of agave spirits. Sometimes it's marked tequila, sometimes it's marked mezcal, that go back hundreds of years.
Fair enough.
And this to me is the even more pertinent part, if you just start going through the records of what was being produced in Jalisco specifically, back in the late 1800s, they've got tequila that's being made with almonds, tequila that's being made with oranges, tequila that's being made, they've got a pachuga. They've literally got the turkey breast in tequila. And so what's my point? My point is I think that the tequila heads and the mezcal heads get wrapped up in this notion of what we have come to recently, very recently, which is, okay, we love these spirits unaged, and we want to taste them as individual agaves to get a sense of what they are, right? But the truth is, most of these, including tequila, right? Vino de mezcal de tequila, most of these were rarely made with a single agave. And so it was a blend, and I don't think anybody was sitting there in even the early 1800s making tequila going, oh, this is the very essence of the Blue Weber. Did Blue Weber even exist then? Right? Like, I think we've
in that regard, totally fair and accurate.
Okay,
I mean,
so I think we fetishize it, and I think saying things like this actually destroys cultural heritage. It puts a pressure on it to be something that it wasn't meant to be.
well, I think this is reverse engineering most of alcohol to try and fit into a French archetype of wine. Like, we have international varieties of grapes, and everybody wants something to be a Chardonnay or a Pinot, and we don't even know what was going on most of the time until we've had genetic testing in the last 25 years. A lot of it was going through an observational history, which wasn't perfect, but the French got it pretty good and the monks got it pretty good, and we all want to fit into the, like, everything's Burgundy, everything is Chardonnay and Pinot, and that Aligote and, like, that Gamay that accidentally got into the field blends, like, let's push that aside and pretend it's not part of the history.
Cool. Okay, so now let me focus on why I brought these quotes up, right? So I start by throwing this Mezcal brand under the bus for just completely, I don't know if they found it online or if they made it up, but clearly not accurate and publishing an inaccuracy on their website, right? But that's just a tiny little Mezcal company. And then you've got Forbes that has, in theory, like all sorts of resources where they should be able to get this stuff accurate, and yet they get it wrong, which brings me back around to the point that this stuff is all so confusing. I think in general, if we were to go out to a bar down the street here and we ask a bunch of people who are drinking bourbon and who are drinking Jack Daniels, that's not a bourbon, right?
Tennessee. It's Tennessee whiskey.
Tennessee whiskey. And we ask them what's the difference. I think that, well, this is a bourbon and this is they're completely different. And, completely different. Like, I don't think they could explain what they're drinking.
And just to chime in, they're so close, in fact, that Jack Daniels could call itself bourbon if it wanted to. They choose to add one extra step to the process to differentiate themselves.
There you go. So, my point is, like, even in something that is industrially made, those, fair?
Massive scale, yeah.
Right. Now you're talking about spirits that are largely, maybe not with tequila, right, but certainly with Mezcal, spirits that are largely made using pre-industrial methods. It can get so confusing. And
absolutely confusing.
While I can certainly be an annoying little prick about correcting people when they write something inaccurate or they say something inaccurate, I try to keep in mind that, hey, even I get this stuff wrong, and I've corrected my own articles, right? My point being, give some room. I think it's important. That we give some room to people to make mistakes, that it's okay to make mistakes, that doesn't make them bad, but then also to accept and embrace your mistakes when you've made them and try to correct when you notice the
and I think to your point, Joe's a historian, but how quickly we forget history or get caught up with, what is the zeitgeist, what is going on in people's concept of tequila today. How many people in the U.S. don't even know that it's 100% Blue Weber versus mixto tequilas, or if you go down to Mexico, who knows that Blue Weber can actually go to seed, and it doesn't have to just clone itself perpetually. So
exactly that.
So we're looking at a quote of somebody who has the resources and should know better and is a historian, but we're caught up with the what is the box that we're putting tequila into within the last 25 years.
Perfect. I like that. And do you have anything else to add, Andrew?
I think I'm good there.
Okay.
Might be another rabbit hole, who knows, but...
Okay, well, I appreciate you joining me for this episode of Agave Road Trip, and I will catch you later down the road.
Absolutely.
Hasta pronto. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly, eat responsibly too, and listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive, do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity and consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.